How far would someone go to keep a lie alive? Would they fabricate a pregnancy, fake 9 months of ultrasound scans, baby showers, and gender reveals? Or would they walk into the home of a pregnant friend, armed with a scalpel and a hammer, to steal a baby straight from her womb? On October 9, 2020, a Texas state trooper pulled over a speeding car near the Oklahoma border. Inside, a woman in hysterical tears was frantically performing CPR on a newborn baby on the front seat. She screamed to the officer that she had just given birth on the side of the road and her baby wasn't breathing. It was a race against time to save a newborn. But when doctors at the emergency room examined the woman, they made a horrific discovery. She hadn't given birth. She wasn't even pregnant. And the blood dripping from her hands belonged to a 21-year-old mother lying dead in a pool of blood 30 miles away. This is not a movie plot. This is the horrifying true story of Reagan Simmons-Hancock, and the ultimate act of betrayal that shocked the entire world. To understand the depth of this tragedy, you first have to understand who Reagan Simmons-Hancock was. In the small, close-knit town of New Boston, Texas, where everyone knows your name and porch lights stay on at night, Reagan was a beam of sunshine. At 21 years old, she was vibrant, deeply compassionate, and adored by everyone in her community. She was a devoted wife to her husband, Homer Hancock, and a loving mother to their 3-year-old daughter, Kinley. Reagan had a smile that could light up the darkest room, and her family meant everything to her. By the fall of 2020, Reagan's life felt complete. She was 35 weeks pregnant with her second child, another baby girl, whom she and Homer had already lovingly named Braxlyn Sage. Her social media was filled with radiant photos of her growing bump, nursery preparations, and the sheer excitement of welcoming a new sister for Kinley. She was just weeks away from holding her baby in her arms. She had no idea that someone close to her was watching her every move, counting down the days alongside her, not with joy but with deadly envy. Enter Taylor Renee Parker. Taylor was 27 years old, a mother of 2, and an acquaintance of Reagan. In fact, Taylor had even taken photos at Reagan and Homer's wedding. On the surface, Taylor seemed like an ordinary small-town mother, but beneath that exterior was a dark, dangerous web of deception. Months before October 2020, Taylor made a massive announcement to her boyfriend and her inner circle. She was pregnant. For 9 full months, Taylor played the role of an expecting mother perfectly. She posted ultrasound photos online. She wore maternity clothes. She even wore a fake silicone belly to mimic a growing bump. She held a gender reveal party, telling everyone she was expecting a baby girl. There was only one problem: it was all a lie. Years earlier, Taylor had undergone a hysterectomy. She was physically incapable of getting pregnant. Why build such an elaborate lie? Investigators later revealed that Taylor was terrified of losing her boyfriend. She believed that if she gave him a baby boy or girl, he would never leave her. But as the months ticked by, the fake due date was approaching fast. She was running out of time. The web was collapsing, and in her desperate, twisted mind, she decided there was only one way out. She needed to find a real baby. Taylor began searching for pregnant women in her area. She visited clinics, watched local social media pages, and targeted vulnerable mothers. And then her eyes landed on Reagan Simmons-Hancock. Reagan was trusting, kind, and open. She welcomed Taylor into her life, completely unaware that Taylor was studying her schedule, her pregnancy timeline, and her home routines. On the morning of October 9, 2020, Reagan's husband, Homer, left for work. Their 3-year-old daughter, Kinley, was home with her mother. The day started like any other quiet Friday in Texas. At approximately 10:00 a.m., Taylor Parker arrived at Reagan's doorstep. Reagan opened the door, inviting her friend inside. She had no way of knowing that Taylor was carrying a concealed hammer and a scalpel inside her bag. Inside the quiet home on Austin Street, time stood still. What happened next inside that house was a crime so violent, so unnatural, that seasoned homicide detectives would later admit it was unlike anything they had ever witnessed in their careers. Taylor Parker launched a brutal, sudden attack. Armed with a hammer and a scalpel, she struck Reagan repeatedly. Reagan, a devoted mother protecting her unborn child with every ounce of strength she had left, fought back fiercely. Forensic evidence later showed defensive wounds on Reagan's hands. She fought for her life and for the life of her daughter Braxlyn, but Taylor was relentless. Overpowered and dying, Reagan collapsed. With cold, calculated precision, Taylor took the scalpel and performed a crude, horrific procedure. She cut open her friend's womb, removed the 35-week-old baby girl, and fled the scene. Left behind in the hallway, hiding silently in terror under a blanket, was Reagan's 3-year-old daughter, Kinley. She had survived the horror in the next room, completely alone. At 10:20 a.m., Texas State Trooper Dustin Henderson was patrolling Highway 82 near DeKalb, Texas, about 30 miles from the crime scene. Suddenly, a vehicle blew past him at extreme speed. Trooper Henderson flipped on his emergency lights and gave chase, pulling the car over near the Oklahoma border. Inside the car was Taylor Parker. She was frantic, covered in blood, hysterically screaming that she had just given birth on the side of the road, and her baby wasn't breathing. On the passenger seat lay a tiny, motionless newborn baby girl with an umbilical cord still attached. Trooper Henderson didn't hesitate. Realizing the baby was in critical condition, an ambulance was dispatched immediately to rush Taylor and the baby to McCurtain Memorial Hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma. During the ride, Taylor kept up the facade, weeping and praying for her baby. But as the ambulance pulled up to the emergency room doors, the medical staff was about to shatter her grand illusion. Inside the emergency room, doctors and nurses worked feverishly to revive the newborn baby girl. Tragically, despite their desperate efforts, baby Braxlyn Sage could not be saved. While one team worked on the baby, a doctor stepped in to examine the supposed mother, Taylor Parker, to treat her after what she claimed was a traumatic roadside delivery. The moment the doctor examined Taylor, the entire story collapsed like a house of cards. There was no physical evidence of delivery, no biological signs of pregnancy, nothing. The doctor looked at Taylor and immediately knew the truth. This woman had not given birth. The doctor alerted hospital security and law enforcement right away. When questioned, Taylor's stories began to break apart. She claimed she had hired a surrogate, then she claimed she bought the baby. Meanwhile, back in New Boston, Texas, Reagan's mother had made a horrifying discovery upon entering her daughter's home. She found Reagan lying in a pool of blood and dialed 911 in pure agony. The dots were connected within hours. The blood on Taylor's hands wasn't hers. The baby wasn't hers. Taylor Parker was arrested on the spot and charged with capital murder. In October 2022, 2 years after the horrific event, the trial of Taylor Parker began in Bowie County, Texas. Prosecutors laid out the cold, chilling facts. Taylor's elaborate scheme had lasted for 9 months. She had faked ultrasounds, bought fake pregnancy bellies online, and meticulously planned the theft of a baby to keep her boyfriend from leaving her. Specialists testified that Taylor knew exactly what she was doing. It was not a sudden break from reality. It was a cold, premeditated, and selfish act of pure violence. On October 9, 2022, exactly 2 years to the day of the murder, the jury found Taylor Parker guilty of capital murder. A few weeks later, after hearing emotional testimony from Reagan's grieving family, the jury sentenced Taylor Parker to death. She became one of the few women on death row in the state of Texas. The story of Reagan Simmons-Hancock is one of unimaginable tragedy, but it is also a story of a community coming together to remember a light that was extinguished far too soon. Reagan's husband Homer and her daughter Kinley continue to honor her memory, ensuring that little Kinley grows up knowing how brave, loving, and joyful her mother truly was. Reagan and baby Braxlyn Sage lie buried together, forever side by side, a mother and daughter bound for eternity, whose tragedy changed a small Texas town forever.